know God, right? Just in case something is missing. You get it? And so just in case something is missing, because I would like to be so connected to God that I have power with him. You see what I'm saying? It can be gunfire. You can walk straight through gunfire and ain't nothing gonna touch you. Why? Because you got the power with him. If you got power with him, guess who ride with you? Angels come. Right? The devil told God, Yahweh, that Yahweh, that I'm trying to attack Job, but I can't get to him because you got a hedge around him. That's what I want around me and my family.
Bring it out.
I want a hedge around the Israelites, and it's already one. You see what I'm saying? He's telling you where the hedge is at. The hedge is in your name. You see what I'm saying? The hedge is in your name. Listen.
Deuteronomy 32:28. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men.
Right. And so have a prince. That means, if your father ruled everything and he named you prince, guess what? Everybody know you the prince because it ain't no secret. When you walk in somewhere and you walk into someone, there'd be a certain presence in there, and people will look at you, and you know that you are an Israelite, right? And it shows. It shows in my demeanor. It shows the way I step on the way I lay my feet on the concrete. You can tell I'm an Israelite.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? You got courage. Can't nothing.
That's right.
Right? And so the power, now the power is totally different. That means I'm thinking that if he looking at my ID and he about to write a ticket, I'm thinking that if you write that ticket and you can hear me, I will deal with you in your sleep. Oh, you can go ahead, sir. Did you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I got the power to know what you should be listening, to know what you should be hearing, because I got the power connected to God. But you don't know how to use your power. You just hear. You just walking.
That's right.
You just talking on the phone. Don't know you got the power to lay the world down. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, what was that song back in the day? I got the power.
I got the power.
I do the right thing.
Fight the power, yeah.
Fight the power till I turn the song. I got the power.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. You tell me fight that.
God. Yeah, fight the power. We got the power. Okay, finish that out. Okay, hold on. Give me that point.
A prince, a male royal ruler of a small state.
Right. A male, which is us, royal ruler of a small state, right? Because the state we're in, if I'm in Detroit, right, and wherever I'm at, like say for instance, I'm gonna show you something. Okay, like say for instance, we got a t-shirt on and we repping our hood. Okay, NFL, Linwood for life, right? So I'm Linwood, right? You 7 Mile, you Joy Road, and we know PA, you know what I'm saying, and Highland Park, right? And so we repping our hood, right? Okay, so by us repping our hood, ain't nobody gonna, if somebody walk up with 6 Mile and Woodward, we're gonna be like, what's up with this 6 Mile nigga? If you don't get up out of 6 Mile and Woodward, you don't get the hell up out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't come up with us.
Yeah.
Because we know 6 Mile and Woodward is weak.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know Detroit.
Yeah.
Right. Now you talking about B Week and Mac, well, they can roll, but you know, just put it, watch, they cool, but put your wallet up.
Yeah. That's the latest stuff.
Put your wallet up. That's B-Wick, B-Wick got respect, don't get us wrong. They took that a long time ago.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's all right.
The B-Wick is good. Yeah, B-Wick is 100, don't get us wrong. I said, just take the ring off, put it in your pocket.
Then you go back.
You know what I'm saying? Y'all can go ahead and kick it, shake your hand, and check the stuff before you leave. Make sure everything's still good. They're good.
Shake the hands.
You know what I'm saying? Don't look right. And so we know our hood. And we know who don't supposed to be among them.
That's
6
right.
Mile and Wood.
That's right.
We know that, right?
Ah,
Okay, and so these are the names that you have to understand that bring some power, right?
ah,
And so the power that it's supposed to bring is the knowledge you're supposed to know. I know that devil. I know this devil, right? I don't say my family members died for corona. I say my family members died because a white man put something together and the Chinese man let it out. That's what I say. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
That's the truth, right?
ah.
Okay. And so all white people ain't bad. Well, the nice one, you know, let Trump hire them, and in 2 weeks you won't even know them. You see what I'm saying? The reason why they're cool because they're too poor to be they on the level where they gotta be cool. Change their level and see how they change. They'll sell you in a heartbeat. Okay, so where we at with that?
Prince has power.
Okay, so give me that.
Power.
Power. The ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a precision, falsity, or quality.
Okay, and so read it in turn.
Power. The ability to do something or act in a particular way.
Okay, so power is the ability to do something, right? And act in a particular way. Right? And not many people can because they don't have the power to act like they want and do as they will. Right? They don't have that. Okay, and so what nation of people that don't have that power? They got to bite their tongue. They got to bow down to every individual. Israel, right? But do Israel know they're Israel? Not really. You know what I'm saying? We're waking up. And as we're waking up, we seeing the change in our favor. But we don't even know that we don't even know that the change is in our favor. Because we plan for the enemy that's getting punished for what they're doing to us. In Israel, them fake Jewish people, they finance a slave ship to bring you over here. Right? And them Arabs they fighting, the Arab and the Negroes, the African Negroes sold you to the white people.
That's right.
Now they over there fighting, and you talking about I pray for you paying for one of them, and God trying to punish them for you because you don't know who you are. Once you know who you, if you know you, then you them. Once you know you, once you know you, then you gotta know them, right? But if you don't know you, you don't know them.
That's right.
Okay. Give me give me that Judith.
Judith 5:20. Judith 5:20. Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against this people, and they sin against their God,
right? If there be any error against the Israelites, right, and they sin against their God, well, there's many errors against us, because at this point, none of us can sin. We can't have no bad things going on. You know what I'm saying? And we all got bad things going on because we have adapted our identity with the heathens. And we look at ourselves as Gentiles. So by us looking at ourselves as Gentiles, not knowing that we have a duty to do to God, Yahushua, right? We have a duty to do. Listen, you down here doing a job for him. If you're doing it or not doing it, the job is still yours. That's the point. If you're doing the job or not, the job is still yours because you are an Israelite. Whether you know it or not. See, when you go to prison, they say ignorance. What would they say? There's no excuse for not knowing the law. Yeah, no, there's something like ignorant in there, but no excuse for not knowing the law, right? So if you run a red light, they don't want to hear. No excuse, right?
Ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Yeah, ignorant of the law is no excuse, right? Yeah, so ignorant of the law is no excuse, right? Yeah, 757. Okay, so ignorance of there's no excuse. And even with God's law. You see what I'm saying? There's no excuse. You got the Bible, you got people on the street. Listen, there is no excuse. You know what I'm saying? You got the internet, you got all this going on, and you still call yourself an African American. You know what I'm saying? And so you testing me. I already touched your I already touched
believe in the Lord?
I already touched so many things.
5 minutes for your brothers. 5 minutes to teach us something, man.
Y'all good, champ?
Okay, Cap.
757. Yeah, 757. And what was that? Judah 520. Oh yeah, let me finish that out. Back it up.
Now, therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error against this people, and they sin against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin. Let us go up, and we shall overcome them.
Oh, thank you. Something give me for today and tomorrow. I had to come to some of that. That's how bad it is.
If there be any error against this people, and they
Right, and as if there be any error against this people, right? Any error, which means that if any one of us, right, is slipping, then all of us gonna get punished. But thank God that he's getting rid of 2/3, because you see that the heathens just clone them. You know, I know y'all know how to clone weed, right? Y'all understand that when I say that. So that's how the other nations have cloned you out of your identity to fall in love with them and hate your own people like they hate you. That's how you clone. You clone to be a chocolate covered white person, and you hate your own people like they hate your own people, and you have nowhere to go because they hate you as well. You see what I'm saying? And so the name and who you are is half the battle. Like if I go to church, what's your nationality? Ain't nobody gonna say Israelite. And what you say is not in the Bible. Gonna be 5 different names, and we too old for that. We too old to not know what the Bible says. And to not know who you are is a disgrace. And this is why the other nations be like, you know what I'm saying? They shake their head like this. I ain't gonna tell them, because if I tell them, they're gonna be over me. Keep them sleep. Let me get that black girl over here so she can work behind the counter.
Right. Keep them sleep. That's the motivation. That's the move. All right, but we ain't doing that. All right. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We are in the process of waking up, so we're gonna continue to do that, knowing who we are, what we should be doing, our lineage, past, and what the future brings. All right. We're gonna talk a little bit about the past today. It's going to be a bit graphic. Why? Because our past is extremely violent here in America. They say, oh, those black people are really violent. Well, how did that happen? You know what I'm saying? How did we get here? Willie Lynch letters, multiple beatings, stripes, buck breaking, scrape, dungeons, it's very aggressive. Castrations, torture, all that. Okay. So with that, we're gonna have to give a warning on this video that it is extremely graphic, and it'll probably be a warning on social medias and stuff like that. If you could give a like, you don't have to subscribe if you're not subscribed. That's fine. You gotta kind of like it to subscribe. Want to know things as far as knowledge and history, so forth and so on. But if you're watching, if you give a like, that would be great, because one thing, Esau will definitely give a dislike. You know what I'm saying? We gotta outweigh the thumbs down and the thumbs up. Okay. Because of course they wouldn't like this information to come out. They want you to think that you just showed up this way. You know what I mean? We showed up in the ghettos and the hoods and um, uh, violent interactions with the police. You know, just everything negative that goes on with our communities. They want you to think it just happened, just showed up out of nowhere. You're born this way. Criminality's in our blood. Yada yada yada. But trauma, anxiety, fear, all the negative emotions are literally in our DNA from hundreds of years of uh, oppression, violence, you name it. Okay, that's allegedly. I haven't seen the DNA code, but apparently it was so bad that it's been passed down in our DNA through the generations. So we're gonna get started. Okay, first let me say Fair Use Act, Fair Use Act. This video is protected by the Fair Use Act. This is a teaching lesson, so thus being protected by the Fair Use Act. This is for educational purposes only. All right. Let me get the videos in order, and we're going to start with Nahum chapter 3 and verse 1. Give me one moment. I'll get everything as it should be, and we can begin. We can get started. All right, we're good. Okay, so it's going to be a reading involved and and scriptures, of course. But I'm going to show you where we're going with this. Okay, where we're going to start. We're going to start with, matter of fact, let's just start with the scriptures, right? Nahum 3, verse 1. Woe to the bloody city! It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. Okay, so that bloody city is the United States of America. Um, the numbers are mind-boggling. They don't even know. Do you know what I'm saying? How many Native Americans were here? Like, we don't know. You know, we just killed everybody that we saw. You know, and it was when it comes down to, you read the descriptions, women and children a lot of times. You know what I mean? The men might be out, you know, hunting or maybe at war. They'll come and strategically kill the women and children, with no problem. And that is America. So for them to, everybody's protesting like, this is ridiculous. Look what's going on in Gaza. You can look outside your front door, and if you can see the dead bodies piling up, that's what you will see. You know, this United States is a very bloody place. With the Native Americans, so-called black men, women, children, pretty much blood splattered all over the place, right? And we know through Numbers 35 and 33 that this place can't be cleansed unless the people that shed the blood is taken out as well. And since a lot of those people passed away, their ancestors are right there, and they all understand that for the most part. And that's the fear that they have, that there's going to be an uprising of conscious Israelites, people that are paying attention to what's going on, pay attention to the past, and know what's going to happen in the future, prophesied to happen in the future. Okay, so they say it's population possibly of 8 million or as high as 112 million. So it's a big gap. You know, I mean, people, I don't know. It was a lot. We just killed them all, right? So it goes with, people say the median probably make 54 million or 90 million. I'm more on the 90 million side. The 112 million is what they said. We went in captivity with the sub-Saharan slave trade, which still continues to this day. So the Arabs, the Muslims, everybody wants to be a Muslim. I don't know why, but want to be a Muslim here in America. But if you were over there, you'll be a slave. So you gotta come to grips with reality that that's somebody else's religion, and you're hopping on board. Broken treaties with the Native Americans, all of them. So it's full of lies and robbery, all of them. They, it said you'll be able to have this part of the land. Then they need to cultivate that land for more cotton, you know what I'm saying, more tobacco or more whatever. And what they do, they stole the land, So that's where you get the lies. It's constant lies. Oh, we won't do this, we won't do that. We're peaceful, blah blah blah. Um, After so many centuries, you gotta understand that they're not gonna tell the truth. You know what I'm saying? Uh, the Kurds, it's different groups throughout the world that the United States again has made treaties with, and we got your back and all this other stuff. And then once they start getting bombed, they're like, can't help you. It's happening right now in Ukraine. Oh, we got Ukraine's back. We're solid. We're rock solid. Trump comes in like, nah, we're gonna cut off all that money. You know what I'm saying? Embarrassment from the world. Belittle them, and you know, that is the American way. All right. So let's get. This is what we're going to be reading out of as well. Okay. So let me get that. So this is the New York Times Magazine, right? 1619 Project. Okay, it says in August of 1619, a ship appeared on the horizon near Point Comfort, a coastal port in the British colony of Virginia. It carried more than 20 enslaved Israelites, right? They were living in Africa, but the Israelites who were sold to the colonists. America was not yet America, but this was the moment it began. No aspect of the country that would be formed here has been untouched by the 250 years of slavery that followed. On the 400th anniversary, this fateful moment is finally time to tell the story truthfully. So this book, right? It's not a book, actually. It's a magazine. Only so 80 some pages, like 80 pages. That goes with advertisements as well. Let me see if I can get the price. $395 for this book. By comparison, you can get Mein Kampf, Hitler's book, for $30. And that's a thick biography. This 80 some pages has advertisements in it, $395 on Amazon. And not easy to get either. Okay. So that's why we're going to read from there, and also another book, Without Sanctuary, another very expensive book. Let me get that. This is Without Sanctuary, another book we're going to read out of today. Costs $249.99. Pretty much $250. You know what I mean? Our history is expensive because they don't want us to read it. Guess what? That's what we're here for. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to read. All right. So with that in mind, let's begin. All right. So I'm going to read about the Black Seminoles in the 1619. So remember, this place is full of what? Lies and robbery. Could they be talking about Japan? Maybe India? Do they have lies and robbery there? Of course, everybody does, right? But it's America. America has the plug on lies and robbery, on killing people, putting a knife in their hand and saying they did it to themselves. This is the American way. Okay, so let me see. In July 27th, 1816, American troops attack Negro Fort, a stockade in Spanish Florida, established by the British and left to the Black Seminoles, a Native American nation of Creek refugees, free Black people and refugees from slavery. Nearly all the soldiers, women, and children in the fort are killed. So, pretty much killed everybody. This is a poem written by uh, Tahimba Jess. They weren't headed north to freedom. They fled away from the North Star. They turned their back on the Mason-Dixon line, put their feet to freedom by fleeing further south to Florida, ran to where gators and vipers roamed, free in a mosquito swarm of Shawnee. They slipped out deep after sunset, shadow to shadow, shoulder to shoulder, stealthily southward, stealing their souls to run steel through any slave catcher who dare try stealing them back north. They built it in palm mud, the swamp mud, saw grass and cypress. They waded through waves of water lily and duckweed. They thinned themselves in thickets, the thorn brush hiding their young from thieves of black skin moldering under moonlight and cloud cover. Many once knew another shore, an ocean way, whose language, songs, stories were outlawed on plantation ground. In swampland, they raised flags of their native tongues above whisper smoke into bellowing bonfires of chant, drum, and chatter. They remembered, they remembered themselves with their own words, bleeding into English, bonding into Spanish, singing in Creek and Creole, with their sweat forging farms in unforgiving heat, never forgetting scars of the lash, fighting battle after battle for generations. Creeks called them Seminoles when they bonded with the renegade Creeks. Spaniards called them Cimarrones, runaways escaped from Carolina plantation death prisons. The English simply called them Maroons, flattened the Spanish to make them seem alone, abandoned, adrift, but they were bonded side by side, black and red, and a blood red hue, maroon. Sovereignty soldiers, black refugees, self-abolitionists, fighting through America's history, marooned in a land that made their own, acre after acre, plot after plot, war after war, life after life. They fought only for America to let them be marooned, left alone in their unchained singing worthy blood. So America turns their backs on people, to the point where after they're done turning their back on everybody on the planet, they turn their backs on themselves. And that's what's happening right now as far as France, the EU, and the United States, Ukraine, and the United States. These are the allies of the US, and they're turning on each other. We see it happening on a daily basis. Tariffs against Canada, which is America's friendly northern neighbor, quote unquote. So we begin the stories there and what happens with our Native American brothers and sisters. They said, and this is hundreds of years ago, the white man speaks with a forked tongue. That's saying he's a serpent. The forked tongue is like a snake, right? Or a serpent. So that backs up the scriptures what our Native American brothers were saying against our number one enemy. We cannot get past pictures like this, where you have Eve in the cotton fields with the children. The children apparently will carry the buckets of water to water the cotton while the adults will pick the cotton. Sometimes dressed up like that, dressed to take the pictures, obviously, right? Sometimes naked, you know what I mean? In that down south heat, mosquitoes, bugs, you name it. And this is a day process. All right, let's continue on. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4. How did we get to where we're at? All right, it's the book of Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage, which I gave thee. I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in a land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. So, us not listening to the Most High put us in this position, right? And now, here we are having still to serve our enemies. You know, regardless of whatever you do in America, you're paying taxes. And if you don't, you're going to go to jail. So that in itself, and the taxes don't go to what you wanted to go to. I'm sure you didn't want all your money to go to Ukraine or Israel or some other place you don't know and, you know, will never visit, never have visited. You know, I'm sure America's going to start arming, whether it's India or Pakistan, they're going to war with each other right now. So America's going to pick a side or both sides and arm them and make money, you know. But this place is clearly a diabolical place, and we have to serve, you know, our enemies. That's prophecy, and that's what's going on. Our money goes outside the country, you know, it doesn't build up the interior of the country, you know, the inside of the country. Just like the person in China was saying, you guys need a revolution. We built, look at all this stuff we built, these beautiful skyscrapers and infrastructure, these fast moving trains, and you know, just the latest in technology and robots and what do you call you know, like the speed trains. They got a bunch of stuff there, you know, a lot of technology, and they're building up China. America is trying to conquer the entire world at the expense of the Americans, you know, and they're all Edomites. Let's not get that mistaken. You know what I mean? This is Esau's world domination. Okay. Well, trying to be world dominated. So let's watch this video, right? This talks about the black jobs, right? There are these things called black jobs that Trump was talking about, and everybody kind of looked at him like he was crazy. Like, what are you talking about? Black jobs? There's no such thing as black jobs.
Unemployment and social.
Well, that isn't necessarily the case, because the black jobs have been the most low-paying jobs you can find. So yeah. She's about to talk about it.
Unemployment and Social Security, and we're still living there. That's the beginning of the black job. I think you would probably say slavery was the beginning of the black job, but that's the beginning of the black job. So those who don't know what black jobs look like. What's a black job? And so, no, we work all jobs. Well, let me just bring you back to this chart. No, we don't. No, we don't. Let me just say, look at this chart again for those who say we work all kinds of jobs. No, those kinds of jobs that y'all say we all work, they make good money. But you see in this chart, we fall off. Right? You see the bulk of us at what is that? Less than 12,000. 12,000 to 37,000, 37,000 to 62,000. And this is where the fall off begins. 62 right to 87. 87 to 112 is we getting real low. 112 to 117 is real short. The bulk of us, where you look at that 12 to the 37. Let me tell you, that price range, that salary range, the salary ranges show you what kinds of jobs we work. And once you get real high, we ain't even there. Once you start getting 200 and 180, 112, 162, 137, 112. Look at where the bulk of us are. What kind of jobs are those? They black jobs. That's what pays that kind of money. Let me tell you, if there had not been systemic racism in this country over generations, we would have much more distribution in the other areas. We wouldn't just be in the under. Look at how big that less than 12,000 a year is, and y'all talking about ain't no such thing as a black job. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Set your degree on fire. Less than 12, like nobody should be, like this should be a very small category, less than 12,500. Look how big that is. Then the next biggest one is 12,000 to 3,700. And y'all gonna tell me ain't no black job. Gosh. We are represented by the wrong people. They don't take the opportunity to have the conversation and preach truth to power. This chart tells the truth.
Con. We're gonna mute that because matter of fact, we'll leave it here. But I don't want to get any. There's some music involved and something that they might deem unworthy to be, used on platforms. So we'll just keep it muted for now. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28, verse 48. So those are the black jobs, the one that pay the least. You could be working doing the same job as your white counterpart, right? You can actually be there longer than this person, and they can come in making more than you because that's what HR, that's what they want to happen. You know what I mean? They don't have to tell you exactly how much the salary range is right here. They could tell that person, look, I'm gonna give you this amount of money. You making 35,000, we'll give them 50. You know what I mean? And it goes up from there. And that's legit. That's legit. It's kind of like a unspoken rule. Oh, you don't talk about how much you make. Yeah, because Esau's always making more. That's why he walks around with that goofy smile on his face, because he knows. You know what I mean? And you work harder than he does and get paid less. All right, let's get that. Deuteronomy 28, verse 48. Therefore, Khan Shalom, King.
Hey, Shalom, King. Yahabashim Yashar Rakatah.
Yahweh Shah Barakatah. The
Khan,
water.
I got you, King. Underbar. Khan, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 48. Therefore, shalt thou serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in all want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
Khan. So, with that in mind, right? Let's talk about the middle passage. And as I read this in the 1619 project, we'll look on the screen. The whole point was to fill them ships to the highest possible rim that they could figure it out. You know what I mean? And hopefully everybody survived, but most times people didn't. You know what I mean? And just threw us overboard, threw our ancestors overboard, and the sharks were following the slave ships. Okay. So this is page 28 of the middle passage, August 1619. A ship arrives in Point Comfort, Virginia, carrying more than 20 enslaved Israelites. I'm putting that, they say Africans, I'm saying Israelites. The first on record to be brought to the English colony of Virginia. There were among the 12.5 million Israelites forced into the transatlantic slave trade. Their journey to the New World today known as the Middle Passage. Over the course of 350 years, 36,000 slave ships crossed the Atlantic Ocean. I walk over to the globe and move my finger back and forth between the fragile continents. I try to keep count how many times I drag my hand across the bristled hemispheres, but grow weary of chasing a history that swallowed me. For every 100 people who were captured and enslaved, 40 died before they could ever reach the New World. I put my index finger from Angola to Brazil and feel the bodies jumping from the ship. I drag my thumb from Ghana to Jamaica and feel the weight of dysentery make an anvil of my touch. I slide my finger from Senegal to South Carolina and feel the ocean separate a million families. The soft hum of history springs on its tilted axis. The cavalcade of ghost ships washed their hands of all they carried. That's America. That's how America got its money. That's how we became the richest country on the face of the planet. And of course, once everything was over and done with, you have convict leasing. To solve labor shortages, Southern states adopted laws that allowed them to imprison people for minor crimes and then lease their labor to local businessmen. That's where you get your laundering. You know, you don't have a job. You just got finished being enslaved to your life. You're out. And if you're standing somewhere, you're loitering, you're breaking the law, you're going to jail, and you're becoming a slave again. Black codes, black laws. You know, it can't be so many Negroes together in one spot. If they are, it's committing a crime. They're a gang. They're plotting. That's why you're at work. You see the similarities. You're at work, two or three of your coworkers are talking. Here comes Esau. What are you guys doing? What are you up to? What are you guys talking about? You guys plotting over here? I'm gonna tell HR. I'm gonna tell the boss. You understand? I'm gonna tell you supervisor. So none of those things really has changed, you know? Let's continue on. Many of these prisoners who were most often African Americans, we'll go with Israelites, were most often Hebrew Israelites, worked in difficult conditions for years. They provided the manpower for constructing roads, growing cotton, building railroads, and making turpentine, among other tasks. Parchman Farm in Mississippi and Angola Prison in Louisiana were among the most notorious of these prison camps. And they wonder where the anger and violence comes from. This is life. This is people's lives from the moment they're born to the moment they die of being subjected to this type of oppression. More black men in prison than were enslaved in 1950. So let's talk about prison. Let's go to Isaiah 42, verse 22. And this is going to be, this is probably like 20 minutes. I want to watch the whole thing just off the strength of it's very informative. And at the same time, it's very known. Do you know what I'm saying? We all could relate. Like, yeah, that's like my cousin. Yeah, that's my nephew. That's my son. Yeah, that was me at one point in time. Um, with getting caught up in the prison system, it's set up that way. You know, it's not like an accident where um, we are it's like in 2018, we make up 33% of the prison population, but only 13% of the US population. You know what I'm saying? It's not an accident, you know? So we're going to talk about American terrorism, Slakia, American history, because the history is draped in terrorism. Slakia is draped in history. Okay. And now that America is openly talking about sending people that haven't committed any crimes to a supermax prison in El Salvador and getting away with it, this is something we got to talk about. This is something we got to understand, that this is nothing new. This is what they have been doing, what they're going to continue to do. And we got to follow these laws, statutes, commandments written in the Bible, so the Most High will destroy our enemies and save us from a certain death. Okay? Because the scriptures talk about, unless he shortened the times, we ain't making it. You know what I mean? Paraphrasing, of course. All right, let's bring that out. Isaiah 42 and 22.
This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 42 and verse 22. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none say restore.
So look, we're going to look at the Slave Act signed in the law by George Washington. Okay. George Washington, the founding father. He's such an important person. What would we do without George Washington? You know what I mean? Or as you say, Washington. This doesn't sound right when I say it. Washington. Okay. Let's look at the Slave Act that he signed. It's a little redacted. Might be hard to, you know what I'm saying? Look at that. And February 12th, 1793, George Washington, founding father. He's on a dollar bill. You probably got a Washington Avenue somewhere in your neighborhood. George Washington University, George Washington Bank, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Library, all that. Signs into law the first Fugitive Slave Act, which requires United States citizens to return runaway enslaved people to the state which they came from. So when Trayvon Martin is walking to the store and George Zimmerman sees him and says, "Nigga, you ain't from around here," this is as American as apple pie. He didn't return him, he killed him. And it took a long time for them to charge George Zimmerman. They weren't going to charge him. Remember that. He was like, so what? He killed a 16-year-old. Look at him. He wears a hoodie. He's a thug. But what happened? People did their like silent protests. They marched. I think what really changed things when the celebrities got involved, like LeBron James wearing his hoodie and like, am I a thug now? And, other NBA stars, you know what I mean? The people that make Esau millions of dollars were speaking out. They're like, oh, this ain't good. All right, charge him for the rest of them get wind of what's going on. And of course, we all know what the end result. Scot-free, and was signing Skittles wrappers for money. And the gun that he shot Trayvon with, he sold it for like $300,000, which is also something that's not new. You know what I mean? We're going to get to that. They take all types of souvenirs, whether it's castrated penises, fingers, toes, your ears. They about that life. You know what I mean? So just sitting back and being like, oh, you guys are violent. I don't understand this. Learn it from you, Esau. The only problem is instead of striking back at the snake that bit you, we strike back at somebody looks exactly like us, which is unfortunate. All right. But jobs go down, jobs and role models go down, crime, poverty in prison goes up. So this is where we're at right now, currently in America. All right. But we gotta understand how we got here. That's important. How do we make it to this point? Now, with everything that we talked about as far as the Native Americans and broken treaties and just a slaughter of a whole group of people in the millions, you know, on the very land that possibly you're standing on right now if you live in America. Let's go to the end result. We're going to skip a little from there to how they want us to be and where we're at. A lot of us, even though we are waking up, but a lot of us are still locked up. 2 million people currently locked up, and we make up 33% of the prison population. That's almost 500,000 people. You know what I mean? Of our people locked up currently. All right, so let's go to when we watch this video. It's a minute, you know what I mean? But it's important that we keep in mind that you might be, say you live in, I think he's from North Carolina. Say you live in North Carolina. Like, yeah, it's crazy down here in North Carolina. And you can relate to that. Like, yeah, I'm in New York City, man. It's crazy out here in New York City. Same thing here in Philly. All around the country, it's the same thing going on. So see, how did we get here and what's going on right now? Let's watch this video. And let's get Jeremiah 50 and 6 on deck. Bubba Kashaw.
From WRAL News, this is Focal Point. Ask Dwight McClain how many of his relatives have gone to jail or prison, and here's what he'll tell you.
Almost all of them. It'd be easier for me to name the people who didn't than the people who have.
Now Dwight is in prison too.
The justice system is overwhelmed with these kids.
Why do so many young black men end up here?
They've lacked the family guidance in their developing years.
There seem to be solutions.
It's not something that we can't do. It's something we have to have the will to do.
But some say a generation of young black men has already been lost in a cycle of poverty, family instability, and crime.
They're trapped. They are trapped.
Black males make up only about 10% of North Carolina's population, but account for nearly 60% of our state's prison population. 60%. Why? Why do so many of those men end up behind bars? The story of one young man may hold some clues. Dwight McClain is serving a life sentence for murder. He's 19 years old.
That's more than 50 years that he's going to serve in prison. He's never going to get out.
In November of 2002, McClain and his cousin robbed a Raleigh public utility building just as employees were cashing their paychecks. McClain shot and killed one of them, a man named Robert Saez.
We arrested Dwight McClain for the November 1st slaying of Robert Saez.
That's Dwight spitting at TV cameras after his arrest. Police also arrested his uncle Lewis, who worked at the utility center. They say Lewis recruited Dwight to commit the crime. Last October, a jury found McClain guilty of first-degree murder.
The jury had a substantial amount of evidence which indicated that he, in fact, did commit this crime, and I think that their verdict is supported by the evidence.
Gaskins urged the jury to spare McClain's life. In his closing argument, he played a George Strait song called Love Without End. Amen. I'm to tell you a secret about a father's love.
And the point that I was making was that Dwight had not had a positive father-son relationship.
The jury sentenced McClain to life. Gaskins believes their decision was based on the facts of the crime, not McClain's childhood. But he says he wanted to send a message that there was a connection between the two.
We see it over and over. I've been doing it for 25 years, and I've seen it so many times I can't count. And if there's a common theme, it's that they don't have a positive family background.
How do you think his upbringing has shaped who he is?
Probably entirely. It's just a real shame that he's found himself in this situation. Had he had available to him the kind of family background that all of us hope to be involved in, it's very unlikely that he'd be in this trouble now.
Next, tracing that trouble to Dwight McClain's troubled life.
Dwight had a better upbringing than we did.
You're watching Focal Point from WRAL News.
You see, it's generational. You know, that was his mom speaking. You're going to talk to her, but she's like, man, he did much better than we did, and maybe her family will say the same thing about her upbringing. And as you see, certain things are passed down through the generations. Let's continue.
Coverage you can count on.
The criminal justice system say it's no mystery to them why so many young black men end up in prison. They point to the common threads in the fabric of so many of their lives. Born to single mothers living in poverty, exposure to drugs, crime, and violence, no relationship with their fathers. The next thing you know, they're in trouble at school and then with the law. While each one of these stories is different, you can find those common threads in the life of Dwight McClain.
So what he was saying is true. You know what I'm saying? It's such a common thing, right? But one thing Esau fails to acknowledge is that slavery had any part in this. You know what I mean? Hundreds of years of being subjected to the most extreme amounts of torture and violence that anybody can't even imagine. You know what I mean? With this class, it might not even make it to the algorithm because just being talked about and the pictures being shown it would go against community guidelines. You know what I mean? So if we can't even show the violence and the things that happen in our upbringing here in America through the generations, then how can you not expect that all the negative things that happen wouldn't have an impact on the people? Okay. But we're gonna bring that together, that correlation. Let's not just think that, oh, these dudes is violence and the mom's doing this, the dad's not here, and the whole family's broken up. This was set, they put this together a long time ago and put this in motion, and it's still continuing to play out. Let's continue.
Dwight McClain was only 5 years old when the Wake County Department of Social Services took him and his 5 siblings away from their mother, Linda, in 1991.
He was done as a result of an incident of domestic violence between Miss McClain and her boyfriend.
DSS had ordered her to keep the boyfriend out of her apartment and away from her children. She violated that order. Reports say the boyfriend beat her and the children and shot up the apartment.
It became clear that the protective plan had been broken, that children were not safe in the home, that they were exposed to domestic violence, and that they needed to be removed and placed, which then happened.
Yes, I had a boyfriend that was always fighting me and everything, and I ended up putting him in jail because he kidnapped me one time and took me in the woods, and he did some horrible things to me, but social service was on my case long before this incident happened.
Yes, it was. Case that now stands in files 1.5 feet high with another 1,300 pages on microfiche. DSS began investigating Linda McClain in 1982. Over the next 3 years, it documented multiple reports of neglect, including leaving her children unattended, living in an apartment without heat or electricity, sometimes living in no home at all.
But during all this period of time, there was regular contact by a social worker working with the family to correct these issues that had been brought to the agency's attention, which had been substantiated.
In 1983, DSS substantiated a case of inappropriate discipline on one of McClain's daughters.
And I attended to all 3 of them.
Her mother, who sometimes cared for the children, saw the evidence and reported it to DSS.
But I like my fingernail. There was 2 cigarette burns right on her, right back here.
In 1985, when Linda McClain was pregnant with Dwight, DSS took her children and put them in foster care. Thinking conditions had improved, DSS returned them a year later. But in 1987, there was another report of inappropriate discipline. Caseworkers also found the children without basic necessities like proper clothing, toiletries, food, or even utensils to eat it. Reports also show the family frequently moved. In one 3-month period, they lived in 4 different locations. Over the next few years, DSS provided assistance with rent, utilities, and food.
Over the course of a year, I was at that home about over 50 times, almost once a week for over the course of a year.
Caseworkers say taking children away from their mother is a last resort. But with no improvement in the situation, Linda McClain refusing to cooperate, and the threat of violence in the home, they say they had little choice. In his trial testimony, this is how Scott Perrell summarized Dwight's family life.
The children float more or less loosely among various relatives, with Linda's living situation a base from which they return and leave. Linda fluctuates between being their mother to almost being a child herself. The family does not seem to be a tight, cohesive unit, but rather a number of loosely changing alliances,
What would you take back? What would you change?
The only thing I think I would change is that, because I would never change the fact that I had my kids because I wanted my kids when I had them. But I didn't know at the time it would be as hard raising them after I had them.
How old were you when you had your first child?
17.
DSS gave custody of Dwight and his siblings to their grandmother, Carrie, who lives near Four Oaks.
My grandma said when she first got custody of me, I would always cry a lot and want to go back to my mama's house.
Carrie McLean was already taking care of several other grandchildren.
I don't know how she do it, but she do it.
I didn't hardly ever have to whoop one. Sure didn't. Them children were just as mindful as they could be to me.
But Carrie McLean says that changed as the children got older. She says at 13, Dwight talked back at her for the very first time.
And I haul over and get him a backhand lick. And I get out there and bring some wood in the house. I said, let me hear it again, I'll probably kill you.
Dwight's attendance at school began to suffer.
I really won't focus on my schoolwork like I supposed to have been. I ain't giving her any effort, I don't think. Well, I know I did. I could have done better than what I did.
Diane Parker, a social worker at South Johnston High School, tried to help Dwight and his grandmother.
I think he had some anger management problems. There were teachers who were afraid of him.
Dwight was expelled from South Johnston for fighting and sent to South Campus, an alternative school for students with discipline problems.
I was going, coming, stuff like that. I would never just go to school like 2 straight weeks at a time. I just didn't like that school. And I dropped out. I was trying to go, but it just, I don't know, I ain't like that school.
Diane Parker has seen students like Dwight too many times.
I sit there and I wonder, what else could I have done? Is there something I could have done? Or that I see the school should have done? But we can only sometimes suggest, make recommendations to parents. We can't force them. People have a right to make choices, and sometimes those choices may not be the best.
Parker says a positive male role model in Dwight's life might have made a difference, but his father refused to acknowledge him. They never had any relationship at all. What do you think he could have done for you had he been there?
He could have done more for me. He could have helped me out. He could have, just a lot of stuff he could have done. Cause my grandma, she's a woman. Like certain stuff she can't help me do. She can't relate to me with. Like he could have did. I wish he was there for me, but I guess he just didn't want to. He want to take responsibility.
I do think that it is important in terms of a child's self-esteem and in terms of a male child's learning to have successful male role models.
Next, the male role model that was there for Dwight McLean.
An uncle who had a long criminal history.
You're watching Focal Point from WRAL News. In-depth coverage you can count on.
When you look at the lives of young black men in prison, you often see lives that lacked positive male role models during childhood. If there are no good choices, a child will often choose whoever is available. In the case of Dwight McLean, that choice was costly. Dwight looked up to his Uncle Lewis.
Yeah.
The look on your face tells me that that probably wasn't the best role model for him to choose.
No.
Why did he choose?
I don't know, because one thing, my brother could give Dwight things that I couldn't. Name brand clothes, shoes, let him drive his car with the rims on and stuff like that.
I just started to like him.
Did you know he had a criminal record?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter.
It was my uncle.
The man he looked up to not only recruited him to commit a robbery, but also fingered him as the murderer.
Everything my uncle did for me to try to take care of me and treat me right.
His uncle also had 19 felony convictions between 1983 and 1995, including a murder charge that was reduced to voluntary manslaughter.
That's one of the influences that Dwight was subject to. I'm not only an uncle who with a long criminal history, but a mother with a long history herself.
How many times have you been arrested?
Maybe twice.
We found 10 arrest warrants for Linda McLean. About half ended up in convictions, one for assault with a deadly weapon. She was also arrested along with several members of her family in connection with nearly 30 break-ins that occurred in Wake County in 1992.
It was basically straightforward drive up, kick the door in, grab stuff and leave.
While several relatives were convicted in the break-ins, charges against Linda McLean were dropped. How many people do you know in your family that have been to jail at one time or another?
Almost all of them. It'd be easy for me to name the people who didn't than the people who have. It's like, I know my brother, Travis, my brother Micey, my sister Shatoni went to jail before, my cousin Cherie, my cousin Sharon, my Uncle Lewis, my Uncle Deborah, my Uncle Bruce, my Uncle James.
He said it'd be easier for me to tell you how many have not been.
He right. He right.
Even Dwight's grandmother has been to jail.
He could have easily have not been involved in this crime had he been able to get away from those bad influences, and he wouldn't be where he is now.
Do you think Dwight's upbringing had anything to do with the chance that he could spend the rest of his life in prison where he is now?
No,
Not at all.
no.
Johnny Gaskin says it took a subpoena.
She don't believe that. You can see in her eyes.
To get Dwight's mother to testify at her own son's trial.
Once she testified, she left and never came back.
You being a good mother to Dwight?
Yes.
Some jurors believe Dwight's mother and other relatives share the blame for his fate.
He had no role models to do.
This juror wanted his identity hidden for fear of retribution from the McLean family.
At least from my standpoint, the situation could have been avoided. That if Dwight was raised in a different manner, and nurtured in a different manner, that he would not have been there. It's a waste. It's an absolute waste.
It was just a very problematic existence for him. It's not what you'd want for any kid. And what that did to him, as far as his ability to reason and anticipate consequences and have good judgment, can't be good.
I don't think that there's an excuse for murder. I think sometimes there are explanations of why things happened that do cause jurors to look at more than just the crime, and they should.
Perhaps society should too. Maybe those explanations reveal its failures.
And I represent the state, the people of this state. I deal with things after everyone else has failed. The family has failed, the church has failed, maybe the school system, the community. Everybody else has failed when they commit a crime and they come to the courthouse.
This is going to use this as an example, okay?
Next, fixing the failures.
We can't be held accountable for what someone else does. But if we're not doing anything about it, then I think we should be held accountable.
You're watching Focal Point from WRAL News. In-depth coverage you can count on.
To learn more about the issue covered in this episode of Focal Point, visit WRAL.com and click on News. There are many strong and successful Black families in our community who do a good job raising their children, and whose children go on to do great things. But what about parents who can't or won't provide the caring and nurturing environment a child needs to succeed? That's where the community comes in. And many say it's the people in the community who are the keys to keeping young Black men out of prison. A Black male child enters the world. Will he end up in prison like Dwight McLean?
Please help me welcome Dr. Jim Johnson.
Or will he be a distinguished professor like James Johnson? Johnson says it's largely a matter of economics. He teaches management sociology and public policy at UNC's Keenan Flagler Business School. He says the manufacturing jobs that helped many Black communities thrive began disappearing in the 1970s. More Black kids started growing up in concentrated areas of unemployment, poverty, drugs, and crime.
Rarely do these kids see mainstream role models that work every day because these communities are bereft of the kinds of jobs that used to exist.
Johnson is an expert witness in the murder trials of young Black men from communities just like those.
The defendant, having been found guilty by...
Testified in the trial of Daniel Green, who murdered Michael Jordan's father in 1993.
In his case, and in just about every one of the 40 cases that I've done, there's a high degree of family instability.
No father in the picture, exposure to violence and crime, and a family that's always moving.
So you have no anchoring whatsoever. You develop no basis in the community, no connections with institutions. You have no significant role models.
In trials, Johnson charts a defendant's life with smiling faces symbolizing the good and frowning faces the bad. The chart of Daniel Green's life shows mostly frowning faces.
As prosecutors always say, well, you're given an excuse for murder. I don't study excuses. What I try to do is understand the way society operates and the nature of inequality in society.
Johnson believes there's a link between a child's exposure to neglect, abuse, and violence and the odds of that child committing a violent crime as a teenager or adult.
Again, it's not an excuse for murder, but it's an understanding the context in which these kinds of events do occur. And you doing what?
He says creating a more positive context means connecting those young Black men to people and institutions that can show them another way of life. He calls it bridging social capital. The capital can be organizations like the church, the YMCA, and youth clubs.
We have to figure out how do we seed these communities with those kinds of resources or build bridges for these kids to those kinds of resources outside their community. Middle and upper class families buy it. Oh, okay.
Johnson is building bridges through his Durham Scholars Program. It pairs inner city kids with mentors from the Keenan Flagler Business School and after-school activities.
So you like that stuff?
The goal is to get them high school diplomas and college degrees. The mentors serve as role models now and as connections to the business world later.
If you can build those kind of social capital resources, then the inclination for gangs, the inclination to do drugs, to engage in violence and things of that nature is much less than it is if you let these neighborhoods continue to fester. Some people been there before.
Keith Gardner sometimes found a valuable social connection in a single person.
Whether it was a teacher, a bus driver, a janitor. My sixth grade teacher said, you know, Keith, you can do it. You can do it. Hang in there. Hang in there. Come over to my house and eat on Sunday. Hang in there.
Gardner grew up an orphan, living with a crack-addicted aunt in a tough neighborhood in the Bronx.
Never knew my father. I knew he was on drugs and in and out of prisons.
Like so many of his peers, Gardner ended up on the streets, involved in drugs and crime. But a longing to escape that life overcame him.
Wanting to make it, wanting to succeed, wanting more out of life. I think it's just the determination inside of me that made me want more.
Gardner hopped a Greyhound bus for Raleigh, finished high school, and worked his way through college. One night in Durham, two teenagers tried to rob him.
It's about a 16-year-old pointing a gun in my face. Another kid, maybe 14, has a gun in my face. So I turn around, so I have two guns facing me, and I'm in the middle.
Gardner ran. The teenagers shot at him, but missed.
I felt like someone let those two men down, those two gentlemen.
The following week, he applied for a job as a teacher at a youth development center run by the State Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention.
It's a job. It's a mission.
Gardner says it was time for him to be the kind of role model those teenagers need.
Had that positive factor in their life, been there, and they had that, they probably wouldn't have been here and maybe been at a basketball game or at home. You're going to write a poem of encouragement.
Gardner says ultimately these young men are responsible for the crimes they committed.
For a kid who wasn't taught values or doesn't have any morals, it's hard.
Hard to make the right choices, but Keith Gardner is living proof that they can overcome the odds and succeed.
I think it just takes a person to bring it out and pull it out. Just putting positive factors in these kids' lives will help them.
Over the limit.
The Secretary of Juvenile Justice says those positive factors need to be there long before young men reach his facilities.
I've always believed that the best place to deal with crimes in the high chair, not the electric chair. We have to, as a society, buy into prevention. The early intervention and prevention money spent saves millions of dollars on the deep end.
This is the deep end. And it'll cost nearly $30,000 a year to keep Dwight McClain in it. That cost could reach nearly $2 million in his lifetime, not counting inflation and future medical care.
So, they're saying from a tax perspective or economic perspective, but where's that $30,000 going? Look at where he's sleeping. Look at his bed. Look at his sneakers, socks. It's not on new clothes. All that clothes is recycled. That money, $30,000 and $2 million throughout his course of his lifetime, goes into that guy. What's his name? Sweat.
This is the deep end.
It's in the high chair, not the
This
electric
guy.
chair. We have to, as a society, back.
Let me say, like, we have to eventually look, George Sweat. If everything changed overnight, he's out of the job. And that red-faced devil doesn't look like somebody who wants to miss a couple meals. Do you know what I mean? So they're like, oh, it's $30,000 a year. It's just crazy, da da da. But everybody gets paid. Everybody gets money. So there is no incentive in stopping anything because they're, like his social worker, his counselor, they're all getting paid for this. Okay? Let's continue.
Into prevention. The early intervention and prevention money spent saves millions of dollars on the deep end.
This is the deep end, and it'll cost nearly $30,000 a year to keep Dwight McClain in it. That cost could reach nearly $2 million in his lifetime, not counting inflation and future medical care.
We will pay for that young man's life and development and taken care of for the rest of our lives. When all we have to do is to turn around and make a priority of trying to intervene during the early school years.
There's the taxpayer's cost. Then there's the cost of talent lost when so many young Black men sit behind bars instead of behind desks.
And I think at the end of the day, our competitiveness in the international marketplace is going to hinge on our ability to solve these problems.
But the biggest cost is not financial. By far, the biggest cost is human. Robert Saez lost his life. His family lost a loving husband and father. That cost cannot be forgotten. In many ways, Dwight McClain lost his life too.
In my head, I just say, I know I'm gonna get out. I know I don't deserve to be in here, so I just don't feel like I'm gonna be in here the rest of my life. It's not. I don't think it's possible. In my head, something just said, I'm gonna get out. I know I'm gonna get out.
I cannot believe that all of these young men that's in the justice system, that's in prison, I do not believe that all of them should be there. And I believe that there is something that could have been done to make their lives more successful. It's just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Okay, so, and one thing she says, I don't believe that all these men should be here. She's absolutely correct, right? And I say that not because they haven't committed any crimes, but a lot of people that are in jail right now, they said 2 million people are currently locked up. They're in there for probation violations, parole violations, having cloudy urine, meaning, using drugs. They have an addiction problem rather than a criminal problem. Do you know what I mean? So they'll go, keeping a job or trying to find a job. They tell you to get a job, but of course you're a felon, so nobody wants to hire you, even though they say they, erase the black box or, hit the box if you have a felony. But they just Google you, you know what I mean? It doesn't take, it's not difficult to find out whether you've been locked up or not. And of course, in your resume, it'll be a block of time where you weren't working because you were in jail, right? But these what she's saying, is correct. Brothers need help, sisters need help. You know what I mean? I have a problem. I'm addicted to drugs and, I need help. They're like, oh, we got you. We got you. We got a place for you. Throw you in jail. You in there and you have to adapt. You have to survive in jail. It's not, it's not a walk in the park. If somebody's in there for slaughtering his entire family and his neighbor's family, and you're stuck 24 hours a day in the same building, in the same unit as him, you have to adapt to that level of violence. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if not, he's going to chew you up and spit you out. So you're in there for, using drugs, a violation, you know what I mean? And Now you have to get into warrior mode. And then once you get out, you have to get into safety. You know what I mean? Or not safety, get into society, you know what I mean? And seamlessly interact with people differently than you would when you're locked up. So, it could mess up your mind. Let's go to Psalm chapter 54 and verse 21. Because notice something, Esau is just every 5 minutes, I don't know what we can do. I'm trying my best. What I did was this, and I did that, and I did this. But they never take responsibility for how we got here. You know what I mean? And how we got here is very important. Slocky, let me show this one picture. I'm sure you've seen it before. But how did we get to where we're at, where that level of violence, where that guy could beat his woman up and the kids so bad and then fire shots in the house? You know what I'm saying? At an early age, that's very traumatic. You know what I mean? So you're used to that level of violence at that time. How did we get to that spot? Is it possibly things like this? What about that? Anybody talk about that? We'll say a photograph taken at a medical examination of a man known as Gordon, who escaped from Mississippi and made his way to a Union Army encampment in Baton Rouge, Louisiana in 1863. Weren't we just talking about the convict leasing in Louisiana and Mississippi? Had the worst of the worst convict leasing, and I believe we're going to read it later on that Mississippi per capita had the most millionaires in the country. Why? Because they had slavery, and sun up to sundown type slavery. Look at that man's back. Let's bring that out though. Psalm 54 and 21.
Salakia,
Khan.
did you still want to do the Jeremiah 50 and 6?
Khan, I'm gonna come back to that.
Okay, Khan. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 54 and verse 21. Is it 55 and 21?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Slocky. 55 and 21. My bad.
Khan. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 55 and verse 21. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords.
Khan. So, we want to find out what's going on. We need prevention. It has to start in the high chair, not the electric chair. I'm sure he's been saying that for years. But what has he done to prevent anything other than come to work and collect a check? You know what I'm saying? Once you're up in there, like the deputies and they don't see any of those kids. They don't do no walk-bys. They might do a walk-by with, the mayor. I remember the mayor came to my detention center that I was working at. It's just just to say I did it, take a picture out front and say, oh, look at me, I'm trying and everything. But it's really like seeing, where's the tax dollars going? How come this only has 8 juveniles in this one? It's supposed to be 12. Where's the other 4? You know what I mean? And one thing I noticed when working in those facilities is once the numbers get low, they start just arresting people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to go to this facility because everybody that stays here for a day, we get a certain amount of money from the taxes. You know what I mean? And so they'll get the violations coming in. And I'll ask them, I'm like, what are you here for? They're like, man, I got hot piss, or I miss school. You know what I mean? Something. Like a small violation that could have been like, all right, don't do it again. Now you're coming back to jail, to a violent facility. You know what I mean? Fight all the time. There's weapons found in there. You know what I mean? You will get jumped, you will get punched on, and you can get hurt bad. So they'll bring them there just for the financial gain. So when Esau talks about, oh, I don't know what's going on, oh, woe is me, I tried to help them out when they were, all this other stuff. This is where it started, and that's where we're at. So you can't forget the foundation of this violence, of this criminality. You know what I mean? You can't forget that and just go straight to the, well, look what's going on. Look what they're doing. And that's one reason we go out in the streets to talk to brothers. You know what I mean? You're at war right now. You don't even realize it. Like that brother, when's the last time he probably cried? You know what I mean? It seemed like it really came out as he's like, man, I want to get out of here one day. He's at it's a war. He did kill somebody, so can't get away with things like that, right? There's going to be punishment for that, but we cannot forget the foundation of how we got to where we're at. Can you read verse 22?
Verse 22. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. He shall never suffer the righteousness to be moved.
Go ahead.
But thou, O God, shall bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will trust in thee.
Esau is a bloody and deceitful man, and some of our people have adopted his ways. I would say most, unless you're born conscious, you know what I mean? If you had conscious parents that knew what being an Israelite was and prophecies and so forth and so on, you adopt those ways. You watch TV, you interact, you know what I mean? You have to be extremely tough to survive in some of these cities and some of these neighborhoods, you know what I mean? Because they were made out to be like that. They're made out to be pockets of crime where Esau will bring in boatloads of cocaine to a dealer that's on the payroll. We can go with the real Rick Ross, Bernardo, what's his name? Bernardo, whatever his plug was, he worked for the government, leaving crates of guns out in the middle of the alleyway in Chicago and in Philadelphia, in other cities, LA. There's AK-47s, there's Russian AK-47s, Israeli Uzis in the hood in the 1980s, along with cocaine. It wasn't no accident. Okay. And we adopt his ways and we end up on some bloody type time and we end up killing each other. Never to do anything to the so-called white man. There's one skit, it was very clever. Jake bumps into Jake and they both clutch on their guns, like, what's up? You trying to do something? You trying to do something? People holding them back. You're like, no, man, chill, relax. Don't shoot him, don't shoot him. And then the guy walks down like, yeah, niggas don't play with me, man. Da da da. And he bumps into a white man. He's like, oh, excuse me, sir. I apologize. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? That's the reality. That's very true. And how did we get there? Look at that man's back. Okay, let's go to Jeremiah 50 and verse 6, because they don't think they did anything wrong. At one point in time, even now, they're like, man, y'all not even real people. Your level of pain is extremely high. You're not even a real person. You're like an animal. You speak up, you get hurt. Now what they doing? We looking at Deion Sanders' son, tremendous athlete, and they're purposely blackballing him, purposely saying that we don't want him on his team. Dad's too involved or something to that effect, right? Even Trump just came out and said, somebody need to pick him up. He's a tremendous athlete. He has great genes, right? That's what they say. Look at that boy. Look at that boy's teeth. He can jump real high and run real fast. He got some great genes in him, put together through slavery. But now Trump's saying, hey, man, somebody pick him up because he knows a few things about my reason behind Trump doing that. Because first of all, we're going to World War III, right? Pakistan and India about to start fighting. I think they're fighting now, actually. Iran, some big explosion happened in Iran, 700 people hurt, 5 people dead so far. So I'm sure both of them numbers are going to go up. So he's probably like, you know what? I need to get these Negroes a bone so they could sign up and be and fight for this World War III. Possible. Or you could look into what he did with Kaepernick and called him an SOB and you know what I mean, and get off his knees and stop, protesting. And then he didn't get picked up by any of the NFL owners, slave owners. So maybe he's doing that. Maybe he's just, putting that out there. It's like, oh, well, get this guy. He's not too bad. Don't remember what I did in my first term, you know. So they hold themselves not guilty. Let's go to Jeremiah. You can bring that out, Jeremiah. Shaw.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15, and verse 6. My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place.
So going from mountain to hill, from rulership to, from the top to the bottom, pretty much. This is where we're at. Our children out there picking cotton for these people, man. This is reality. Okay. Can you read verse 7?
Verse 7. All that found them have devoured them, and their adversaries said, we often not, because they have sinned against the Lord, the habitation of justice, even the Lord, the hope of their fathers.
So they don't offend. We offend not. What do you mean? Ain't nothing wrong. What we do? Y'all, and to Esau's, to the truth. That's the truth. This is the result. This is the punishment of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Now let's go to Zechariah 1:15. Because that's the truth, but they go too far. They continue to go too far. Our time's up. They keep going. Ain't nothing changed. The way they treating Deion Sanders' son, you know what I mean? They might not draft him at all. They had to get the president of the United States to come in and be like, yo, slave masters, this is a good slave right here. Look at his genes. Look, you see why Deion Sanders was running and jumping and doing all these things in college? And and he went to the NFL and was great. Pick up the boy. Get that boy on your team now. They take it a step too far. Let's bring that out in Zechariah, King 1:15.
This is the book of Zechariah, chapter 1 and verse 15. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. For I was but a little displeased, and they help forward the affliction.
So they're going a step beyond. They're going well and beyond their Call of Duty. You can stop now. They just keep going. You look at one thing they mentioned in the documentary, they had talking about the manufacturing jobs leaving and where they go. They go to China. That they have meetings. You know what I'm saying? What's his name? Not Rockefeller. Church. Henry Kissinger. Kissinger was big in China, right? During this time period, Nixon, moving into Reagan and all that. They're like, look, these black men are getting jobs. They're getting union jobs. We have to get rid of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to send all the manufacturing jobs to China for cheap labor, and we'll raise the taxes. It was already a economic downturn in the 80s. We'll raise taxes, right? With those Reagan's trickle down effect. We'll raise these taxes, and they're not going to be able to pay for these businesses that they have. Some sustained, but a lot didn't. Especially, I know in Philadelphia. And one thing they did, the corridor that the L train. This was later on though. They they did work on it, and nobody was able to use that up there in Market Street, West Philly. So businesses closed because that's how people would get around to go to the businesses. All right, let me go to this grocery store. Let me go to this candy store. Let me go over here, and businesses closed. And who bought them for pennies on the dollar? The Chinese. Was that an accident that they were allowed these immigrants from China to come over and have a business? They can't even speak English. You know what I mean? Don't even have a green card or haven't passed the test to know who George Washington is and everything, but they have a business in your neighborhood, just bringing us further and further down the economic ladder. They help further affliction, and they got together and did that. And now, what the Most High is doing with China and the United States, now it's a trade war. Now China can't sell their goods. Now America's economy is collapsing. So Most High God is paying them back for what they did. We're just gonna remember the history and never forget. Let's go to Zechariah 11 and verse 5. What do you got? You can bring it out.
God, this is the book of Zechariah, chapter 11 and verse 5. Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not.
So they're unbothered. You know what I mean? They don't care about a picture like this. They don't care about their history. They know their history very well. In fact, they have relics of their history, castrated members, fingers floating through formaldehyde tanks. Like, oh, remember granddad had that, he hung that nigger. They know their history very well. Okay. Let's go to Deuteronomy 20, verse 15. Obvious, you know, classic, if you will. You know what I mean? But of course, with these classes, you never know who's watching. Might be watching for the first time, never read it before, never knew about who the Israelites were, right? So this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring it out. And if you could do me a favor, everyone, that's on the Zoom or on YouTube, if you go on YouTube, and give a thumbs up just for the algorithm's sake. You're like, I don't like this information. This stuff depressing. For the algorithm's sake, and our information is important. It shows us who we are. We read through the scriptures and obvious history. Let's bring that out, King. Deuteronomy 28, verse 15.
God, this is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
Go ahead.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
So this is the field, right? Obviously. You see young child barely old enough to walk, picking cotton. Somebody took a picture of him. Obviously, they thought it was funny, cute, whatever. All right. Now let's talk about the city. Let's talk about traffic, of all things. Can traffic be racist? Is everything racist? You guys always talk about race. Damn, you can't talk about nothing else. Leave this white man alone. He ain't do nothing to you. He wasn't no slave master, and you wasn't no slave. So let's leave him alone. Just that stuff, it's done. It's over and done with. Post racial society we live in. Can't stand you niggas, right? And that's what Jake be saying. But Esau be on that same type of time as well. It's all over. It's done with. There's nothing more to see, right? Well, we shall see about that. Let's talk about the traffic in Atlanta. All right. The traffic in Atlanta. All right, I'm gonna read Why is traffic in Atlanta racist? You ain't gonna believe this, man. All right. Okay. A traffic jam in Atlanta would seem to have nothing to do with slavery, but look closer. It's by Kevin Cruz, Kevin M. Cruz. Atlanta has some of the worst traffic in the United States. Drivers there average 2 hours each week, mirrored in gridlock, hung up at countless spots from the constant clogged Georgia 400 to a complicated cluster of overpass at Tom Moreland Interchange, better known as Spaghetti Junction. The downtown connector, a 12 to 14 lane mega highway that in theory connects the city's north to its south, regularly has 3 mile long traffic jams that last 4 hours or more. Commuters might assume they are stuck there because of city planning. Some city planner made a mistake, but the heavy congestion stems from a great success. In Atlanta, as dozens of cities across America, daily congestion is a direct consequence of century-long effort to segregate the races. So when you're in a traffic jam, this is not just in Atlanta, it says other cities across the country. It is done with success. This is done on purpose. Okay? To segregate the races. For much of the nation's history, the campaign to keep African Americans in their place socially and politically manifested itself in effort to keep them literally in one place or another. Before the Civil War, white masters kept enslaved African Americans close at hand to coerce their labor and guard against revolts. But with the abolish of slavery, this this the role was reversed. Once they had no need to keep constant watch over African Americans, whites wanted them out of sight. Civic planners pushed them into ghettos, and the segregation we know today became the rule. At first, the rule was overt, as southern cities like Baltimore and Louisville enacted laws that mandated residential racial segregation. Such laws were eventually invalidated by the Supreme Court, but later measures achieved the same effect by more subtle means. During the New Deal, federal agencies like the Homeowners Loan Corporation and the Federal Housing Administration encouraged redlining practices that explicitly marked minority neighborhoods as risky investments and therefore discouraged bank loans, mortgages, and insurance there. Other policies simply targeted Black communities for isolation and demolition. The post-war programs for urban renewal, for instance, destroyed Black neighborhoods and displaced their residents with such regularity that African Americans came to believe in James Baldwin's memorable phrase that urban renewal means Negro removal. This intertwined history of infrastructure and racial inequality extended into the 1950s and 1960s with the creation of the interstate highway system. The federal government shouldered 9/10 of the cost of the interstate highways, but local officials often had the say in selecting the path. As in most American cities, Slovakia, in the decades after the Second World War, the new highways in Atlanta, local expressways at first, then interstates, were seared along routes that bulldozed blighted neighborhoods that housed its poorest residents, almost always racial minorities. This was a common practice not just in southern cities like Jacksonville, Miami, Nashville, New Orleans, Richmond, Tampa, but in countless metropolities across the country, including Chicago, Cincinnati, Denver, Detroit, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Syracuse, and Washington. While interstates were regularly used to destroy black neighborhoods, they were also used to keep black and white neighborhoods apart. Today, major roads and highways serve as a stark dividing lines between black and white sections in cities like Buffalo, Hartford, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis. In Atlanta, the intent to segregate was crystal clear. Interstate 20, the east-west corridor that connects I-75 and I-85 in Atlanta's center, was deliberately plotted along a winding route in the late 1950s, to serve, in the words of Mayor Bill Hartsfield, as the boundary between the white and Negro communities on the west side of town. Black neighborhoods, he hoped, would be hemmed in on one side of the new expressway, while white neighborhoods on the other side would be protected. Racial residential patterns have long since changed, of course, but the awkward path of I-20 remains in place. By raising impoverished areas downtown and segregating the races in the western section, Atlanta leaders hope to keep downtown and its surrounding desirable local desired local locale for middle class whites, articulating a civil vision of racial peace and economic progress. Hartsfield bragged that Atlanta was the city too busy to hate, but the so-called urban renewal and the new interstates only helped speed white flight from Atlanta. Over the 1960s, roughly 60,000 whites left the city, with many of them relocating in the suburbs along the northern rim. When another 100,000 whites left the city in the 1970s, it became a local joke that Atlanta became the city too busy moving to hate. As the new suburbs ballooned in size, traffic along the poorly placed highways became worse and worse. The obvious solution was mass transit, buses, light rails, and trains that would be more efficiently linked the suburbs and the city, but that too faced opposition, largely for racial reasons. The white suburbanites had purposely left the problems of the central city behind and worried that mass transit would bring them back. Accordingly, suburbanites waged a sustained campaign against the Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, MARTA, and its inception. Residents of the nearly all-white Cobb County resoundingly rejected the system in the 1965 vote. In 1971, Gerwent and Clayton counties, which were then also overwhelmingly white, followed suit, voting down a proposal to join MARTA by nearly 4-to-1 margins, keeping MARTA out of becoming the default position of many local politicians. Let me see. Emmett Burton, a Cobb County commissioner, won praise for promising to stock the Chattahoochee with piranha. And if that were if that were needed to keep MARTA away. David Chestnut, the white chairman of MARTA, insisted that in 1987 that suburban opposition to mass transit had been 90% a racial issue. Because of that resistance, MARTA became a city-only service that did little to relieve commuter traffic. By mid-1980s, white racists were joking that MARTA, with its heavy black ridership, stood for moving Africans rapidly through Atlanta. Even as the suburbs became more racially diverse, they remained opposed to MARTA. After Gwinnett voted the system down again in 1990, the former Republican legislator later marveled at the argument given by opponents. They will come up with 12 different ways of saying that they are not racist in public, he told a reporter. But you get them alone behind a closed door, and you will see this old blatant racism that we have here for quite some time. Earlier this year, Gwinnett County voted Martha down for a third time. Proponents had hoped that changes in the county's racial composition was becoming less white might make a difference, but the March initiative also failed by an 8-point margin. Officials discovered that some non-white suburbanites share the isolation instincts of earlier white suburbanites. One white property manager in her late 50s told a reporter that she voted against the mass transit because it was used by poorer residents and immigrants, whom she called illegals. Why would we want to pay for it? She asked. Why subsidize people who can't manage their money and save up a dime to buy a car? At the end, Atlanta's traffic is at a standstill because its attitude about transit is still at a standstill too. 50 years after its interstates were set down with an eye to segregation and its rapid transit system was stunned by white flight, the city is still stalled in the past. Isn't that interesting? Come to find out, the traffic in America is racist. The implications behind that, you know what I mean? And that's why, like, well, everything, you must think everything's racist. This is America. Once again, it's America, and we got the information. This book costs like $400. You know what I'm saying? Costs like 300 something dollars for this book, right? But we got to keep in mind, as much as things change, the more they stay the same. All right, let's get Deuteronomy 28, verse 50. All right, you can bring it out.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 50. A nation fears continence, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young.
This is America. Look at that. We got a baby picking cotton, right? A baby picking cotton, and then what we have? An older gentleman with his back torn up. You know, probably picked 300 pounds of cotton. Wasn't enough. Do it again. They say in this book, you know, they picked the cotton until you couldn't tell the difference between the cotton and the weeds. That's how dark it was. And when it was a full moon, you worked all night because you could see. You know what I mean? And if you didn't have enough pounds in your bag, then you get beat. And look at that man's back, tore up. All right. Now, so the next part, okay, I said at the beginning, but I'll say it again, it's graphic. Okay, it's gonna be graphic stuff. So if you got children in the room, you might not want to watch this. You know what I mean? You might not want to watch it, but listen, this is our history. You know what I'm saying? And let it put a fire under you, man. You know what I'm saying? Before you start forgetting, all Trump has to do is give everybody $1 million and call reparations. Like, oh, he's not so bad. They're not so bad. That's not the case at all. All right. Very much so bad. Okay, so this is 92. Let's continue on with Deuteronomy. Let's go to verse 66. And you can bring it out.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 66. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life.
Okay, this is Leonard Woods, November 29th, 1927, in Pound Gap, Kentucky. Notice how everybody that unalived this man is standing around him now. There's not like, all right, we did it and we're leaving. They stand and they take pictures. They're very proud of this. You know what I mean? So this is the Most High said, abhorred a bloody man. He hates them. And you ask yourself, I mean, why? Why would God hate Esau? There's no reason for God to hate. There's no hate in the Bible. Isn't that what you hear when you go out there? There's no hate in the Bible. Because apparently they don't read. Okay. Let's get Psalm chapter 5. Let's get chapter 5 and verse 5. Matter of fact, start verse 4.
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 5 and verse 4. For thou art not a God that have pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity.
Go ahead.
Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will arbor the bloody and deceitful men.
So he hates them. He abhors them, the bloody and deceitful men. Okay, let's look at this. They are what you call serial killers. Every serial killer is an Edomite. You haven't seen that. Every now and then they'll say, "Oh, such and such did this." There was a guy in Atlanta. Apparently he was, but who knows? Because the Klan was big down then, and you see what was going on with the roads and highways. But they say he did it, but it was very, very controversial. There's another brother in Philly. I think they got him, he had stuff coming out of his house, you know what I mean? Like he had people chained to the basement. So maybe like 0.00001% would be somebody that's not an Edomite, but for the most part, they said there's 30 active serial killers. The FBI to the 30 active serial killers operating in the United States at any given time. 99.9999% of them are Edomites. All right, and that's just the facts. Okay, because that's what they do. They kill you in a heartbeat, and there ain't nothing changed. So when we talk about American terrorism, American history, you can't leave this out. All right. So the lynch, I don't know if I'm gonna say the word just because you know what I mean. Well, whatever happens, happens, right? 4 identified Israelites. This is about 1900, right? Let's read the history on this. Lynching of 4 unidentified African Americans. They're unidentified. Nobody knows who they are. So when they say, it was only 1,000. 1,000's a lot, though. You know what I mean? From this time to that time, during the, slavery's over. Everybody's supposed to be free. They're like, hold on, y'all getting stuff together. Y'all got Rosewood. We all got Tulsa, Oklahoma. We about to go take down on all that. Just jealous, just angry and jealous, and when we're not even paying attention to them. Like now, ain't nobody paying attention to Esau. Nobody care about what Esau doing. They're marching and everything. They're like, come on and march with us. Like, nah, we're cool. And eventually everything's gonna be our fault. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all ain't march with us, and y'all ain't do this. And Trump said Trump's gonna take us to supermax prisons for doing absolutely nothing, not even bothering these people. But they stay worried about us and they stay thinking about us. So took down 4 brothers, man. 4 brothers in a one tree. They probably had guns. This time when Esau had guns, we didn't have access to firearms like we do now. You know, so they keep they behind at bay because Jake has Jake the rabbit has a gun too. It's just that now the rabbits shooting each other, he's shooting other rabbits. So just, you know, that's off. But brothers is waking up. Sisters are waking up. All right. Let me see. Let's talk about this. All right. This is Will James. All right, let's see what happened to Will James. Give me 1 second. $45. Okay. Portrait of Will James, 1907, in Cairo, Illinois. Um, this has a real photo postcard. Inscription under the portrait: Will James, alias Froggy, addressed to Mrs. Jake Peter in Broad Street in Kentucky, Paddock, Kentucky. Will James likely sat for this portrait at a local postcard photographer's studio, a popular and inexpensive fashion of the time. This is the first image of the James lynching in a series of 15 real photo postcards. Other images not produced here included the home of his alleged victim, Miss Ann Pelly, the home of the 17-year-old daughter of Mr. Borden, who found the unalive Miss Pelly in an alley she was crossing on the way to her grandmother's house. The course the hounds took, the trains and the mob took over to reach Belknap, Illinois, where James was apprehended, and to return him to Cairo for a public execution. The rope from which James was hung broke before he died. His body was then riddled with bullets, dragged by a rope for a mile to the alleged scene of the crime, and burned in the presence of 10,000 spectators. You can't get 10,000 people together to see a major sports event. 10,000 people, according to the New York Times. 500 women were in the crowd, and some helped to hang the Negro and drag the body. So, the women, what'd they do? Women ain't do nothing wrong. This is the bloodhounds. That, were used to apprehend him. That's all you need. The bloodhounds started barking, so it had to be somebody, right? Somebody had to go. Somebody got to check. And that's what it was. You know what I mean? That's all it took. The bloodhounds barked. So let's see the 10,000 people. Look at this. That's crazy. Look at the square and all that. All those people. And guess what? They all had children, and their children had children. And they still the same people you see every day, man. Ain't nothing changed. This is his head. This is half a head. So when we talk about terrorism and the ISIS and these people over there, They live right next door to you. Well, maybe on the other side of the tracks, since they systematically got away from you. Now they're coming back. Like, hey, neighbor, we're gentrifying your neighborhood. You won't be living here long, right? We're gonna get you out of here. Oh, but Black Lives Matter. They'll give you a sign in the window, especially in Philly. They'll have a Black Lives Matter sign, but they're systematically kicking you out of your house. So does Black Lives really matter? That's a half a head, man. So this is what we're dealing with. American history. This is history. Let's continue on. We're not done. You know what I mean? You get 10,000 people. What does it say? Well, hold on. While we talk about it, the half-burned head of James on a pole in Candy Park, November 11th, 1909, in Cairo, Illinois. Gelton silver print, a real photo postcard. This is a postcard. On the inscription, this pole is in Candy Park, intersection of Washington Avenue and Elmwood Street, which have William James, aka Froggy, half burnt head, and etched into negative, half burnt head of James. The photographer's name, LeBlanc, addressed to Miss Jake Peter, 2057 Broad Street in Kentucky. Yeah, so this is this is America. Let's keep going. Famous picture. Let's look at this. Keep your phone on mute. Get your phone. I got it. I'll just leave it like that, y'all. Leave it like that. All right. 31. Let's see what happened here. Another famous picture. Got Esau pointing up there with his Nazi, his Hitler mustache, right? It's the lynching of Thomas Shipp and Abram Smith, a large gathering of lynchers. That's the name. They're lynchers. August 7th, 1930. Wasn't that long ago when you think about it. Do you know what I'm saying? Because my grandmother, my great grandmother, when she passed away, she was like 105. Do you know what I mean? So, and that was 15, 20 years ago. So grandparents, this is grandparents' age. You know what I'm saying? Definitely great grandparents' age. So this is a couple of generations away. A couple of generations away, right? This is Marion, Indiana. Gelton silver print, etched negative, Marion, Indiana, August 1930. The following accounts is drawn from James Cameron's book, A Time of Terror. Thousands of Indianans, I'm saying that right, carrying picks, bats, axe handles, crowbars, torches, and firearms, attacked the Grant County Courthouse, determined to get those goddamn niggers. A barrage of rocks shattered the jailhouse window, sending dozens of frantic inmates in search for cover. A 6-year-old boy, James Cameron, one of the 3 intended victims, paralyzed by fear and incomprehension, recognized familiar faces in the crowd. Schoolmates, customers whose lawns he had mowed, whose shoes he had polished, as they tried to break down the jailhouse doors with sledgehammers. Many police officers milled outside with the crowd, joking. Inside, 50 guards with guns waited downstairs. The door was ripped off the wall, and the mob of 50 men beat Thomas Shipp senseless and dragged him into the streets. The waiting crowd came to life. It seemed to Cameron that all those 10 to 15,000 people were trying to hit him all at once. The dead ship was dragged with a rope up to the window bars of the second victim, Abraham Smith. For 20 minutes, citizens pushed and shoved for a closer look at the dead nigger. By the time Abe Smith was hauled out, he was equally mutilated. Those who were not close enough to hit him threw rocks and bricks. Someone rammed a crowbar through his chest several times in great satisfaction. Smith was dead by the time the mob dragged him like a horse to the courthouse square and hung him from a tree. The lynchers posed for photos under the limb that held the bodies of the two dead men. Then the mob headed back for James Cameron and mauled him all the way to the courthouse square, shoving and kicking him to the tree, where the lynchers put a hanging rope around his neck. Cameron credited an unidentified woman's voice with silencing the mob. Cameron, a devout Roman Catholic, believes that it was the voice of the Virgin Mary and opened a path for his retreat to the county jail and ultimately for saving his life. Mr. Cameron has committed his life to retelling the horrors of this experience and the Black Holocaust in his capacity as director and founder of the museum with the same name in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Under magnification, I can't say that word, Slakia. One can see the girls in this photo clutching ragged swatches of dark clothing. After souvenir hunters divvied up the bloodied pants of Abraham Smith, his naked lower body was clothed in a Klansman's robe, not unlike the loincloth in traditional um, depictions of Christ on the cross. Lawrence Belter, the studio photographer, took this photo. For 10 days and nights, he printed thousands of copies, which sold for 50 cents a piece. 50 cents a piece in 1930 is a lot of money. It wasn't that long ago when you can go to the movies for a quarter. You know what I'm saying? Or a nickel. A nickel, you know what I mean? You go in there with a penny, you could get a soda and everything. 50 cents. They made money off of this. They made a lot of money off of this. And so now let's get something interesting that's happened, right? Let's get Deuteronomy 21 and 23, right? Because they killed him and then they hung him anyway. Why they do that? This is more spiritual than anything, because Esau knows who he is. He knows who we are. And that's why, like, we offend not. Look what they did. You know what I mean? They did this to God, to their God. So we have every right to do this craziness, right? Kind of bring that out, Deuteronomy 21, 30, 21, 23.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 21 and verse 23. His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any
Slaki.
wise
Slaki, start at 22, Slaki.
Verse 22. If a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be to be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree.
Go ahead.
His body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is a curse of God, that thy land be not defiled, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance.
Her. Like, oh, you be accursed. You hang there all night. Make them hang all night. You know, some worthy of death. They're the judge, jury, and executioner. They're playing God. All right. Let's get a couple more, just so we are on the same page of there's no redemption for this man. It's impossible. You can't go back in time and undo what they already did. So this course of action, the Most High has set this up, that there is no redemption for them. Babylon, we'll say about Babylon being saved, but they're not saved. You know what I mean? Forsake her. Paraphrasing. All right, let's see this. This is another iconic. We'll get to some of the iconic pictures. Look at everybody smiling. They're excited. Look at them. They got their hats on and their ties, their Sunday best. Look at everybody trying to get their picture in face in there. Now, one thing that they probably couldn't anticipate, what they couldn't anticipate was that the internet would be here, that these pictures would be plastered everywhere on the four corners. So when they come out and say, "Oh, these people need democracy. They need to be, they need to be more like us. They need to be more civilized." And they're like, "This is your civilized? That's your grandparents? That's your parents, right?" Because how old's Donald Trump? 80? When did his father pass away? He's probably there. Do you know what I mean? Just from my perspective, right? My family, my grandfather had children later. You know what I'm saying? Like men can have children at, he can be 70 years old and have some youngins, right? So, or even later, So the way my family tree, my father's side, they were all like older men and died later in life. You know what I mean? Lived long lives. So when we go back to like slavery times, I'm a couple generations removed for that. You know what I mean? My great grandfather was like born in like 1800s, something crazy like that. You know what I mean? And moved up to like Delaware and had to work over at almost like a plantation over there. You know what I mean? It was the North, so it wasn't slavery, but he's working. You know what I mean? And worked his way out of that. You know what I mean? But it's not that long ago. That's the one thing. One thing I talked to somebody at camp, I'm like, yo, slavery is crazy. Our ancestors were enslaved by these people. He's like, what? Slavery was thousands of years ago. And I looked at him. I'm like, you really believe that, don't you? He honestly believed our slavery happened thousands of years ago rather than a couple hundred. You know what I mean? Our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. 3 Negroes lynched at Duluth, Minnesota. Duluth, Minnesota, for what they assume, what they say is assaulted somebody in October 1919. Okay, what about this one? And this book is very hard to get. That's why I have to take pictures of it. You know what I'm saying? Very difficult to get. If you can find it on Amazon, get it. You might have not, obviously not today because it's Sabbath, but you might have to go to the actual book dealership itself, like not Amazon. You know what I mean? Get everything from Amazon, but this is called Without Sanctuary. You type it in, and it might be like withoutsanctuary.com. I'm not 100% sure, but you go to the website and you can see the book. And last time I checked, it was sold out. Might have to pay like $100 for it on the directly at the that website, the publisher's website or whatever. But in Amazon, you're paying like $300. So what's this? 1911, I believe. Let me see if I can find the information on here. It said, that might have been just it. What's this? Spectator at Jesse Washington. Look at that. Everybody get together. Not going to see the Eagles game. Not seeing who the Giants are going to draft. Look at that. They got their top hats on. Get dressed up. Come on, kids. Get in the car. We're about to hang a Negro. Or hang a nigga. Diabolical. This is terrorism. You know, you see Jake, it could be 50 niggas on the corner. 50. I'm talking niggas. Rolling dice. Half of them got guns on their waist, got open cases, warrants, ain't scared of nobody, right? And he like, yeah, man, I shot that nigga right in his face, man. You know what I'm saying? He looked at me just because he looked at me. You know what I'm saying? Then I walked down the street and it was a white person that came out. And I didn't know who he was, so I left. I ran. Wait a minute. You shot the nigga in the face, but the white man gets a pat. Hold on. You gotta whisper his name. Nothing but niggas around. It was a white person. That's, that person has been terrorized, traumatized into thinking that these people are God and, the end all be all. Don't get them upset. Don't get them mad because what? They'll drag you out of your house and hang you and leave you there. All right. Let me find this the information on this. Give me 1 minute. Okay, so spectators of Jesse Washington, May 16th, 1916. See if it goes any further. Yeah, okay, so this is Waco, Texas. Let me see if I can see, let me see something else. Is this Jesse? I'm not sure. They might see any name on here. That might be Jesse. I'm not sure. This is Ted Smith. We'll end with Smith. But I want to say this is Jesse right here. I could be wrong, but let me see. If they start taking body parts off them, then obviously this is who I'm talking about. Let me see. Waco, Texas. And to hell with Waco, Texas. Remember the ATF came and shot up all those Branch Davidians? Oh man, those people they weren't doing nothing wrong. Man, they in Waco, they deserve everything they got. That's how I see it. Okay. No respect for the heathens. Washington was a mentally retarded 17-year-old boy on May 8th, 2016. Slovakia, 1916. Wasn't that long ago, right? Lucy Fryer, a white woman, was unalived in Robinson, 7 miles from Waco. Washington, a laborer on her farm, confessed to the murder. In a brief trial on May 15th, the prosecutor had only to present a murder weapon in Washington's confession. The jury deliberated for 4 minutes, and the guilty verdict was read to shouts of "Get that nigger!" Now, confessions. We already know how confessions work, right? Confessions with was it the Central Park 5? Just tell us you did it, and you can go home. Up all night. You know what I'm saying? They no sleep 3 days straight. They're like, yeah, all right, I did it. Okay. See, how easy was that? And then they leave it out, then you never go home, right? So they shouts of "Get that nigger!" The boy was beaten and dragged to the suspension bridge spanning the Benzos River. Thousands roared, "Burn him!" Bonfire preparations were already underway in the public square where Washington was beaten with shovels and bricks. 15,000 men, women, and children packed the square and climbed up poles and on top of cars, hung from windows, and sat on each other's shoulders. Children were lifted up by their parents into the air. Washington was castrated and his ears were cut off. A tree supporting the iron chain that lifted him above the fire of boxes and sticks. Wailing, the boy attempted to climb the skillet hot chain. For this, the men cut off his fingers. So I think that is him. The executioners repeatedly lowered the boy into the flame and hoisted him out again, which each repetition a mighty shout was raised. And look at the people that did it are sitting right there. They don't have to go anywhere to find out who the murderers are. They're right there. There's your senators, your politicians, your presidents, your teachers, your doctors. All right. All right, let's end with this. 22, Smith. A smoldering remains of Ted Smith, onlookers, July 28th, 1908, in Greenville, Texas. It's a postcard, burning the Negro Smith at Greensville, Texas. Copyright 1908. 18-year-old Ted Smith was slowly roasted alive on the streets of Greenville, Texas. The mob tended the fire throughout the day. His killers accused him of assaulting Viola Delancey, a white woman. The case was never adjudicated. Slakia. The Greenville chief of police, from whom Smith was taken, stated, special occasions occur where the people take the law into their own hands and pass judgment and punish accordingly. No, so judge, jury, and executioner. All right. So this is American history, man. This is American history. So if you could, I know, you're very busy, but if you could put a like under this video, that'll be great. If you could share it, that'll be great. Need to get, I just want to get a little traction with the information. You know what I'm saying? It's information before they shut everything down. All right. I will greatly appreciate it. Let's go to Ezekiel 35 and we'll start at verse 1. This place is a zoo, man. And the people that run it are crazy. Okay? And Most High God is going to destroy them. Simple as that. We got to pray on it. We got to fast. We have to call on the name of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, that he destroys our enemies. Look at the things they've done. Slow roasting somebody throughout the whole day, keeping them alive. The other guy, they were horsing them up to keep him alive. This torture. It's torture. All right. Let's bring that out though. Ezekiel 35, verse 1.
This is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 35 and verse 1. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying,
Go ahead.
Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it.
So anybody's asking who Mount Seir is, the Caucasians live in the Caucasus Mountains. So easy, a caveman can do it. That's Mount Seir, the so-called white man. Go ahead.
And say unto it, thus saith the Lord God, behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out my hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate.
God is against them. God is against Mount Seir. God does not like them. When we go out there and read the scriptures, this is the word of God. So the things that they are going through now and will currently will continue to go through, this is the work of the Most High God. Okay, go ahead.
I will lay thy cities waste, and thou shalt be desolate, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord.
Go ahead, read on.
Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred, and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end.
So just constant bloodshed. And it's still going on. It hasn't stopped. The only time you actually hear about it is when it's on tape now. Somebody can tell you that, oh, such and such got shot by the police and he didn't have a gun. They're like, he might have had a gun. Why would the police do that? It's always questions and maybe this, maybe that. But what it comes down to it is, unless it's on tape, it gets buried. All right. Go ahead, verse 6.
Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee.
So at one point in time, it was postcards. You know what I mean? Postcards. Now they'll take a picture and put it online. With Trayvon Martin, they took his picture, put it online. But now, they have postcards sending, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to chime in, see how you doing, like, oh, this is a nice postcard. And you know what? They saved the postcards. You know how I know that? Because we're looking at them now. They didn't throw away these postcards. Like, oh, what a memorable time. I remember that day. I couldn't make it that time. It was, I was out of town. 10,000 my closest friends, 15,000 my closest friends went to see a Negro burn and, beat him to death and throw rocks at him and bricks. You have to be a psychopath to be in this category. Only psychopaths do things like that. Only people that have severe mental disorders do things like this. Leaving church to do things like this. Getting the children together, getting dressed up, go take a shower. Today's bath day. We're going to watch a Negro get killed today. Nah, man. Real sick. There's no kumbaya and like somebody said, like, how do you marry them? You know what I'm saying? Like, you obviously don't know history, or you do. No, I'm gonna be on the side of they just don't know history. You know what I mean? You weren't taught this in school. You didn't learn this in college. Nobody talks about this on TV. You know what I mean? Hardly. So it would have to be you know, ignorance. I'm gonna have to blame ignorance. Can you read verse 7?
Verse 7. Thus will I make Mount Seir most desolate, and cut from it him that passeth out, and him that returneth.
So, he'll destroy it like he destroys it during like a hurricane. You know what I mean? A bad earthquake that just keeps, having aftershocks. It just destroy these places. You know what I mean? Of course, the ultimate destruction is going to be the thermonuclear destruction coming from Russia, North Korea, Iran, China, and it's all building to that effect. But now, he's using different weather anomalies to destroy places. And back there in, was it South Carolina or North Carolina, where the hurricane hit and there was a whole bunch of sundown towns that got destroyed. All praise to the Most High. Can we where we at? Verse 8?
Verse 8. And I will fill his mountains with his slain men, in thy hills, and in thy valleys, and in all thy rivers shall they fall that are slain with the sword.
So it's the Most High God's going to get vengeance back because what they've done to his chosen people. Let's read a couple more. Go ahead, keep going.
Con. I will make thee a perpetual desolations, and thy city shall not return, and ye shall know that I am the Lord.
Go ahead.
Because thou hast said, these two nations and these two countries shall be mine, and we will possess it. Whereas the Lord was there.
You like, hey, you know what? Man, we got all this right now. We got France. You know what I'm saying? We got Europe. Matter of fact, let's go across seas and kill all those peaceful Native Americans and steal their land. You messing up. You messed up. The Most High God gonna kill you now. Go ahead, verse 11.
God. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will even do accordingly to thy anger, and according to thy envy which thou hast used out of thy hatred against them. And I will make myself known among them when I have judged thee.
So we can stop there. No, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Might as well read the whole chapter. So the anger and the envy they have towards us, God's gonna use it against them. You hate us so bad, God's gonna destroy you. Go ahead.
Verse 12. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord, and that I have heard all thy blasphemies, which thou hast spoken against the mountains of Israel, saying, they are laid desolate. They are given us to consume.
So, them talking, talking crazy about us, saying that this is, we're animals, These black people are animals. They don't even feel pain. They're not even real humans. If they want to run away from slavery, it's a mental disorder. I forget what it's called, but they got it termed in their psychology and their sciences. Oh, it's a scientific term. If they try to leave, then it's I can't think of what it's called, but whatever they termed it, it was mental illness if you didn't want to be a slave. Okay, go ahead.
Stockholm.
Hmm.
Was it Stockholm syndrome?
No, it wasn't Stockholm syndrome. We got Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, we're the. Oh my God, why would you hate these white people? They're so nice. You're just racist. You know what I mean? That's the Stockholm syndrome those people that our people got. They, uh they sympathize with their enemies. Let me see if I can find it. Give me 1 second. To what's it called? Oh, drap drap drapetomia. I'm sorry, I'm saying it wrong. Let me see. Uh, Drapetomania was proposed mental illness that in 1851, American physician Samuel A. Cartwright hypothesized as the cause of enslaved Africans fleeing captivity. This hypothesis was based on the belief that slavery was such an improvement upon the lives of slaves that only those suffering some form of mental illness will wish to escape. Come on, man. Something wrong with these people. Can't save them, you know? They don't save her. Don't save Esau. He doesn't want to be saved. Okay. All right. Where are we at? Verse 13? Verse 13.
Verse 13. Thus with your mouth ye have boasted against me, and have multiplied your words against me. I have heard them.
Yeah, there's no God. What was it the Big Bang Theory? Something exploded, nothing exploded and made everything. They're like, what about God? There is no God. I'm God. Look at me. Look at my Bentley. Look at my Rolls Royce. Look at this mansion. I'm God. You know what I'm saying? Look at my chain. No, well, I don't know. Esau be rocking the chains and diamonds and all that. That's what we do. But look at my bank account. Look at all this thing I have. I'm God, right? Boasting against Yahweh Shem Shai. All right, go ahead.
As thou didst rejoice after the inheritance of the house of Israel.
Wait, verse 14.
Salakia, verse 14. Thus saith the Lord God, when the whole earth rejoiceth, I will make thee desolate.
So and it says that also in what's that? I think Isaiah 13 or 14. When they go down, everybody's gonna be happy. It's gonna be a beautiful thing. The everybody's gonna be smiling and because they just ruin everything. This is America. And now it's to the point where Donald Trump says, I will throw you in jail for nothing. You know what I mean? I'll put you in Supermax prison for nothing. I don't like what you're saying. I saw that. I saw what you said online back in 4 or 5 years ago. You're going to go into Supermax prison. That's what type of people we dealing with, man. You know what I mean? And then you have that level of, he's extreme, right? But then everybody else under him, ain't nobody saying nothing. I don't see too many Edomites coming out and saying, unless it affects their bottom line. But because it, doesn't necessarily affect them, they might be, oh, my cousin's a homosexual and Donald Trump said this, or, I was working for the federal government, he fired me, so now I'm upset at him. They don't care about anybody else. You know what I mean? They certainly don't care about God's chosen people. But it's ironic that every time we go out and preach the word, you get a Jake that says, well, how come they can't be saved? They don't want to be saved. They haven't done anything to show me or anybody else. I pay attention to what's going on online and, the news and everything like that. I haven't seen anybody that steps up and says, I want to change my life. You know what I mean? Or they might say it. If we're at camp, they might say it. That means they're going to do it. They don't even want to hear the scriptures. You start reading the scriptures, they start talking over you. I thought you wanted to change your life. I thought you wanted to be down with the Israelites. It just sounds good. Okay. Let's read verse 15, King.
Verse 15. As thou didst rejoice at the inheritance of the house of Israel, because it was desolate, so will I do unto thee. Thou shalt be desolate, O Mount Seir, and all Idumea, even all of it. And they shall know that I am the Lord.
God, even all of it. From the Donald Trumps on down, all of it. Y'all in trouble. You all have been found guilty. Okay. And this ain't anything other than the word of God. Reading the word of God. That's what that says. You rejoiced at our downfall, smiling in the pictures. You know what I mean? The little girl looking up with admiration as she sees a hanging dead body. You know what I'm saying? With all that in mind, the Most High God is going to rejoice at your desolation. It says, so will I do unto thee. God is going to rejoice when you go down as well. By Shema Mashiach Yahushua. Right? So that is the lesson. Hopefully it was edifying. Like I said, once time again, please give me a thumbs up. Bubba Kashaw, thumbs up. And a comment. It be any comment like shalom, or decent lesson. You don't have to say that. I'm not telling you to say that, but just saying anything in the comments also gets the algorithm moving as well. So just shalom family, Shabbat shalom would be much appreciated. And if you could share it on your Facebook or Twitter or whatever, I would appreciate that as well. You're like, man, my supervisor follows me on Facebook. I can't be putting this stuff on him. He gonna get me upset. You gonna get me in trouble. As you can see, we you know what I mean? We have been conditioned, to fear these people, man. And it's unfortunate, but it ain't gonna last forever because God's gonna bring them down. Homie Ashala. All right, so let's get prepared. Go face the east, stand, prostrate, however you want to do it. We're gonna pray the Lord's Prayer out, and Pray a prayer that the Most High destroys these people. You can put some olive oil on your head as well. All right. And I shall return momentarily. It's lucky I had to get my oil. All right. This is the Lord's Prayer in Paleo Hebrew. Abanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Ayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malachbaka, Taba'a, Ratazayaka, Ayah, Aisha, Barataza, Kawa, Ayah, Bashamayim, Natananawa, Lacham, Kau, Yuwam, Wasalah Nawa, Kabawah Nawa, Kasalah Nawa, Kabawah Nawa, Wala'a, Dabe Nawa, Banasai 1, Abal, Hawashai Nawa, Mayan, Rai, Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwa, Wa'ala, Wata Palarov, Lawalamnum, Amen. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 6, and verse 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Shema. Yashir Allah. Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Aha, Shema, Yashirala, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Aha, Shema, Yashirala, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Hero Israel, Yahweh our power is one. Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. Creole of Israel, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kom Yashala. Yabaraki Yahweh, Shamaraka, Yahweh, Pun Yahweh, Anyaka, Hanyaka, Yasha'a Yahweh, Pun Yahweh, Anyaka, Shemnaka, Shalom, Yahweh, Bashem, Mashiach, Yahushua, Baba Gashra, Shemai, Nawa, Aita, Shalak, Micah Elohim, La, Shemaiah, Barak, Rapar, Azar, Magun, Kazak, Ataziyah, Bawa, Yatai, 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 Zabak, 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 Torah, 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 Hana, Messiah family, Hana, Messiah and the family, Nah, Messiah and the family, Yasha Allah, Yasha Allah, Yasha Allah, Ko, Akium, Ko, Akwathium, Ko, Bunyam, Yasha Allah, Ba'ashem, Hamashiach, Yahushai, Dawada, Allah, Alam, Amen. Oh Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Mashiach, Yahushai, we come to you humble and shamefaced in these last days, seeing the evil that is in this world, perpetuated and pushed by Esau, the Edomites, see the things that they have done and they continue to do, furthering the affliction, not letting up. Baba Gashar, cast judgment openly on them, have the world see your mighty works, crashing more planes, more trains, more automobiles, more economies. Baba Gashar, continue to put the pressure on them for the things their ancestors have done and the things that they continue to do to your chosen people. And we will be unbelievably grateful to you and will project your name throughout the four corners of the world. Continue to project your name throughout the four corners of the world. Baba Gashar, Baba Gashar, Baba Gashar, destroy our enemies. In Yahweh name we pray. Amen. All right. Hopefully that was edifying. Might have been hard to watch, hard to read, but it's important that we understand the things that have been done to us and that continue to get done to us, that we really call on the name of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai to take us up out of this captivity and put these curses that the Most High put on us, put it on them. All right. Hope you have a restful Shabbat. Don't forget, tonight is the new moon. So continue to keep the laws during the Sabbath. And here we are with the new moon coming up. All right. So all the brothers, Yahweh Shem Yahshua Brakatham. And all the sisters, Nadiv in the building, Shalom King. All right. How you feeling?
I'm coming up out there a little funk. I was there, man. I'm getting a little better. Every day get a little better.
Khan, all praises. And keep Brother Nadiv in prayer as well. Brother Nadiv. You know what I mean? Keep going. Praying for you, brother. All right.
The Water King. All praises.
Khan. All right. And to our sisters, Yahweh Shemasha Shemartha. Shemarthan. Om Yashala.
Yasha.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.